welcome back to another week of Techy Tuesday. Today we're going to continue our series on LLMs, or large language models, by talking about Claude. Claude is actually going to look, feel, and work very similar to ChatGPT, and I know at our brokerage, most of our agents tend to be utilizing ChatGPT as the LLM platform that they are using the most often. So if you've never used Claude before, but you have used ChatGPT, it is not going to be a huge learning curve. And if you look into Anthropic, which is the company that develops Claude, you will understand a little bit more about why that is, but we're not going to get into a history lesson today. We are simply going to show you how you can actually utilize Claude as a platform. So the website you're going to want to go to is Claude AI. You don't need the -new. I'm already signed in. But if you go to Claude AI, it's going to ask you to create or sign into your account. Once you've done that, your screen is going to look like mine, and you can actually get started with using the chat. So the first thing that we see is it's going to introduce you and ask you to go ahead and start a new chat. So you can go ahead and start typing in whatever prompt it is that you might be using. Maybe you're trying to create a first-time home seller's guide and you want to get all of the copy that's going to be going into that presentation. If that's what you're trying to do, then you can go ahead and type in that prompt with as much detail as you can possibly give. The more detail that you can provide in your prompt, the higher quality of a response that you are going to get back. There's also some other things you can add or utilize within your chat to make your experience a little bit better or more on the nose for what you are trying to do specifically. Right here, we can add different things to this prompt. I can actually upload a file. So maybe another agent had given me a home seller's guide and they told me it was okay for me to use that as my inspiration. Then I could go ahead and upload that file into here and tell Claude to use that as the main example and to read that file. Or maybe I have a couple of SOPs in place that I want to make sure are included in my presentation. I could upload a Google Doc or a Word document with that bits of information and tell Claude to make sure it's included in the final product. You can also add things directly from Google Drive, which is really awesome. So you can connect your Google Drive in here and not have to go searching for your files. You can grab them directly from the drive. And you can also use a project. We are going to talk about what projects are here in a little bit, but if you have created a project, you can actually add that to the chat so that it can pull information from that project. Next to that little plus, we have our search and tools. It looks like a little filter. This gives us some more options for customizing this chat. Under use style, I can tell it if I'm trying to do something specific. Am I trying to make this a really short and sweet presentation? Then I can make sure it gives me a more concise writing style. Or if this is going to be a luxury presentation and I want it a bit more formal, I can tell it to write in a different style. You can also add and create other styles as well. Now, if you are going to be doing this more for research purposes, maybe you didn't know anything about what you were going to put in this guide, and so you needed Claude to do a little bit more of the legwork for you, you can turn on extended thinking, which gives Claude more time to come up with an answer for you, which will typically coincide with a better answer. If you hover over it, it actually prompts you there that this is for trickier questions and more challenging problems. This is going to make sure that Claude actually takes the time to process everything and dig into more research than it would have if you had not had extended thinking on. Research is going to be very similar. It's not going to give it more time, but it is going to tell it to go into more academic research mode. It is going to look harder at sources, and it is going to look at more sources as well. Here you can turn on or off if you want it to be able to search the web. Typically, I suggest you leave that on. And then here, if you do upgrade your account, you'll be able to connect some of your G Suite. If you do start connecting third-party applications, you can go to manage to turn these on or off or disconnect them if you need to. This little clock is just going to turn on that extended thinking mode. So if you click on it, you'll see it turn blue. If it's blue, that means you're on extended thinking. It's going to take a little bit more time for the responses to come. So when it talks about Opus, Sonnet, Haiku, these are the underlying models to how Claude is running. You don't need to get too much in the weeds of that, but if you look at the bottom of each one, it's going to tell you what it is best used for. Now, Sonnet's going to be your default. Typically, you won't need to change that unless you are doing something very rigorous, in which case I would change it to Opus. But in my experience, I typically leave it on the main default. Down here, it is going to give you a couple of prompts. So if you were having it write, in this case, we wanted it to write the copy for a presentation. It is going to give us some prompts. Moving on from the main screen here, in the top left, you've got this little window that's going to open up all of these tabs so you can actually see what they are and what they say. Eventually you'll get used to the icons, but until then, it'll tell you exactly what each one is. Under recents, this is going to save all of the chats that you've been doing. So if I need to come back into here and grab anything, I can definitely go back into an old chat. I can start a new chat, again, get back into my old chats. Now projects are going to be a little different. This is almost like a folder of chats. So right now I have all of these separated, but if I wanted all of my chats about open houses to be together, then I could create a project. And that way every chat that I want associated with open houses, I can save into a project folder. Now you do only get a limited amount of this with the free account. If you go and check out the paid accounts, you can see how much more you can get with it. Artifacts are really cool. These are going to be kind of branch offs of Claude. You can make an artifact, but this is a lot more advanced for your day-to-day purposes. You will not need to know how to make an artifact, but you can definitely come in here and use some that someone else has made. One of my favorites is the raw note transformer. That way you can still take paper notes, but then you can actually have it take your paper note, copy that in, and make it a digital note for you, so that if your handwriting's hard to read or things like that, you're able to go back and look at it and save those notes digitally. So there are tons of different artifacts in here. For example, this one will switch your code from Python to JavaScript or the other way around. Here's a QR code generator. So there is tons of cool stuff in here. You're just going to have to kind of play around with these artifacts. Each one does something completely different. And then we do have the coding option. This is something that you only have available to you if you are using the paid version of Claude, but this is going to actually let you code with Claude. So if you are wanting to make an interactive game to put on your website about home buying in San Antonio, then you can come into here and have Claude actually code that item for you. This isn't something we're going to get into today, but I will say it is really, really cool if you have not used it before. And then at the very bottom left, you're going to have access into all of your settings. So now I can go to settings here, and this is where pretty much everything else is going to live. The biggest things here is you can tell Claude how to refer to you. How should they call you, by what name? You can also decide what you're typically going to be using this for. And you can actually give Claude instructions that it is going to remember every single time that you go in to do a chat. So here you can see it's giving you some examples of what those instructions could be. So here I want it to ask me clarifying questions. If you were doing the coding, that one was saying, I want you to specifically give me this type of code. Those are the kind of instructions that you can put in here so that Claude can actually speak to you and respond to you that you want it to. You can also do things like change your appearance from light mode to dark mode. You can upgrade your account. You can look at all of the different applications you have connected. So if you need to go back and access any of those settings items, again, you'll click on your little profile in the bottom left. Now, we didn't get too heavy into strategy or prompting. I just want you guys to know how to get in, see and use the interface, and mess with your account settings. If you have additional questions for us, please leave them in the comments. But thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you again next week.